In this episode, I'm going to cover what you can do if you play with a scared mentality during games. Now, before we get into the video, if you are interested in one-on-one coaching or my online program, the Confident Competitor Academy, I've put links to those in the description below for you to learn more. Now, do you ever find yourself playing scared during games? Maybe you're scared to make mistakes. Maybe you're scared to turn the ball over, have coach yell at you, have your stats drop. Maybe you're scared to strike out, right? So you're playing in this scared mental state. Now, whenever you play like that, right, you play with that level of fear. What typically happens to the outcome of your performance? And we could even think back to the best games that you've ever played. Were any of those games played in a scared way? Did you ever play your best games with this scared mentality where you're just really trying to avoid making mistakes? Or were you playing those best games in a very free and confident way? I would imagine that you're playing in that free and confident way, right? Because when you play freely, when you play confidently, you're not so concerned about making mistakes. You just let yourself perform, and naturally, you end up performing a lot better. But it's really easy as athletes to slip into this scared mindset. But why, right? Why is it that we're going to play with this scared mindset when we know how important it is for us to play with this aggressive mentality where we want to go out there and play our best, achieve the results that we want? Well, if we look at the strength, right, of emotions, and we could even just, kind of use an example right now to help illustrate this. If you think back to a really good game, right? So maybe close your eyes right now and think back to a really good game that you played. All right, just remember the emotions that come along with it. Think about how good you felt. Think about what you did during that game. Just take you a second, right? Think about that good game. Now, I want you to do the same thing, but I want you to think of a really bad game. Think back to a bad game. Think about the emotions that are involved. What happened, right? So just think back to that bad game for a second. Now, between the two memories, which one would you consider to be stronger? For myself, I know that if I think back to past good games I've had, yeah, they feel good, right? There's no line that they feel good. But the negative games, those negative memories are so much stronger. And this is often why we find ourselves playing scared. Because when we have these negative past experiences, when we have these games that we remember we've played in the past, that negative emotion is much more intense than the positive feeling we get from success. So then moving forward, if we're not careful of this, and if we don't look out for this, it's natural for our brains and our minds to try to work to avoid having to experience that negative emotion in the future, because that negative emotion is so intense. This is where we can see a lot of fear of failure develop based off past experiences of a bad game or a bad performance where, you end up performing poorly, you feel very negatively about it. Every time you think back to that moment, you feel negative about it. So then that translates into more avoidance of that negative feeling in the future. But we could also see that this scared mentality develops if we're so focused on our goals. Right? So the first reason that the scared mentality can develop, and it does develop, is because of these negative experiences in the past. And so then we're trying to avoid having to experience that negative emotion because, again, these negative emotions are so much stronger and more intense than the positive emotions and those positive memories. But another reason why we might be playing with this scared mentality will be the goals that we set for ourselves in the future. Now, it's not that your goals themselves are making you scared, right? It's not that, oh man, my goal is so big that it terrifies me. It's more that you're scared of making mistakes because you might not reach your goal. Playing poorly to where coach will bench you so then you don't get to move on to the next level. We see that the goals scare us because we think about what will happen if we don't achieve that goal. How we will be disappointed in ourselves, how other people will be disappointed in us because we're not able to reach that goal that we've set for ourselves. So then we go into games scared of making these mistakes and having these negative things happen because we don't want to fail at our goal, right? And so then that's going to stand out in our mind. So we see these negative past experiences, right? The intensity of that negative emotion drive this scared mentality, but then also the fact that we want to achieve our goals. So then naturally we start to think, well, I can't make mistakes, because then what will happen? Oh, well, I'm not going to be able to reach my goal because I made that mistake. So then that scared mentality takes over as well. And when you play with this scared mentality during games, this is where you find yourself holding yourself back, playing timidly, not playing aggressively, hesitating, right? Because you're trying to be too perfect to pick the right shot or put the right swing on the ball, because you don't want to make a mistake, you don't want to fail, so now you're trying to be too perfect. You're almost trying to force that performance for yourself. So what we're going to see happen is that this scared mentality is present because we are trying to avoid these negative things. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want our stats to drop. We don't want other people to be upset with us. But unfortunately, what ends up happening when you play scared? Well, at the beginning of this episode, I asked you to think back to those games where you've played really well, and I would imagine that most of them were not played in a scared mentality. So we can assume that when you're playing scared, you don't play your best. So you underperform, you make more mistakes because you're hesitating, you end up holding yourself back. So even if you don't make mistakes, maybe you leave the game disappointed in yourself. So we know that this scared mentality is not going to help us. And what we can do to try to shift this mindset, right? Go from more of this scared mentality to a more confident, aggressive mentality, is we really want to first begin by changing what we're wanting to achieve during the game. And the simplest way that you can do this as a player is to focus on controllable parts of your performance. So if we examine a tennis player who has a scared mentality right now, and so they are focused on not double faulting on their serve, not losing to a worse player. So then they end up, just kind of barely hitting the ball over just to keep it in play because they're scared of hitting it out. That player is not going to perform at their best when they're playing that way. But because of the fear they have, the worry they have, they're playing with that scared mentality. They're so focused on the result, and then the fear of not achieving that result is driving this change in play, that we're not going to then say, oh, well, I want you to focus on winning the match, because they are thinking about winning the match, but by thinking about winning the match, it's turning into them being afraid of losing the match. So we want to kind of scratch the outcome altogether and not even concern ourselves with it right now and focus instead on controllable parts of their game. Now, going off that tennis player example, let's say that they focus just on giving 100% effort during the match. Now, that's an extremely simple goal for them to set for themselves. However, if they focus on that, and so instead of thinking so big and focusing on the result and not losing to this worse opponent, things like that, they just focus on giving 100% effort, they're going to be staying more present. And then what's going to end up happening is they will play more naturally. And that's really what we're after here. It's not that I don't want you to win, right? Of course I want you to win. That's why I'm making these episodes. I want to help you increase your performance and go out there and win. But thinking about winning is not helping you if it's leading to a scared mentality. But focusing on 100% effort, for example, will put you in a better position to win. Another option could be focusing on their footwork, right? And so for you, as a player, depending on your sport, you want to choose something that is very simple for you to say, I'm going to go out there and achieve this today. Now, I was a baseball player, and a lot of times when I tried to do this, as I got older and I was really working on the mental game, I would honestly just focus on having fun. I know that kind of sounds corny and cheesy, but for me, I dealt with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and so then I would take it way too seriously to where I was stiff and tense. That didn't help me at all. So if my goal for the day was to just have fun, have a good attitude, have good thoughts, that was more controllable for me, and then it led to me performing better. So choose that one thing for yourself, right? And then set that as your goal. Do not allow yourself to go into the game scared of making mistakes, scared of experiencing that negative emotion. Know what you want to achieve and go after that. That's what it means to have an aggressive mentality, an aggressive mindset. But don't say you want to go after winning or even, scoring a certain amount of points. Go after something that is 100% controllable, you can focus on, and then by the very nature of your sport and your performance, that will then lead to the result, but we don't need to worry so much and stress so much about that result, especially since the result is leading into that scared play right now. So choose for yourself. What's the goal that you're going to set for yourself going into your next competition that is 100% within your control? And then let's focus on achieving that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training. And if you're interested in any of the programs I have available, I've put links to those in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.